actually follow my trading signals. If that sounds like something you're interested in, we'll share a link in the chat and you can sign up. You can sign up directly with the link or speak to a support rep if you have any questions. If you're asking, what do I trade? Pretty much everything. Indexes, ETFs, stocks, options, futures, Forex, and crypto. Thoughtful analysis, active trading. Check it out. And now, back to the show. What's happening, everybody? Official trade closed out on Netflix. The $5 max profit closed out for $4.90. I put that in yesterday, and it was filled. I updated that in the Pulver alerts. So nice little trade. We had a blowout move. I mean, I calculated a 10 to 10.25% move, looking about $85 on Netflix when the price was around $8.66. We went all the way up towards 1,000, which ended up being about a 15% move. So the high was $999. We faded off that, but we're still hanging in there. Large gap. I'm not saying we have to fill it, although we have stretched a decent move away from the 200 moving average. But I can go ahead and delete this because the trade is done. Just had another winner there on SPX. If anybody's in my daily profit play, we just grabbed another winner right there. So that is my 50% take profit. So there and there. Okay, so we do have Trump talking today at 11 o'clock, and I do want to show a couple levels. So I took a trade this morning going after a 610 and a 600. I'm going out to tomorrow on this trade. So the point is I'm looking for something directional by today, tomorrow. I mean, it certainly feels like the market is just waiting. I mean, clearly waiting for something. We have perfect indecision. It's almost like freakishly textbook indecision this morning where, call and put option volume is essentially the same number. Price has gone less than $1, I think, on the SPY. I mean, this is insane. So 605 to 606. I mean, we've gone about 80 cents for the first, what is that, 50 minutes of trading? That's pretty nasty. So I think that, again, the market may use the 11 o'clock speech with any headlines as a catalyst for a movement. I don't know if it's going to move up or down, but I'm seeing some major levels that price is likely going to gravitate towards. So I bought a 601 put and I bought a 609 put. I'm sorry, 609 call, and I bought a 601 put. So a 601 put and a 609 call, and I paid $1.05. So I paid $1.05, and if price hits one of these two levels today or tomorrow, I should probably turn that dollar into hopefully $2 or better. So that's the trade that I'm in right now. I mean, they're easy. Yeah, the spreads. If you're in my practical options course, the spreads, bullish spreads, bearish spreads, both those trades that's what I did for Netflix. Yep. So anyway, that's what I'm looking at for S&P today. Trump speaks at 11 o'clock at some summit. What is it today? The World Economic Forum. He might come in and just say the U.S. is the greatest. Nobody can touch us. We control the world. And the market might love it or the market might hate it. I don't know. He's not going to say anything we probably haven't heard before, but what it feels like is happening today is that the market is just waiting for that to be the catalyst that maybe directs some movements. Overnight, we also have some Bank of Japan looking to potentially raise rates. So I could say like things could get a little bit gnarly today and tomorrow. And again, maybe it's up. Maybe, I mean, the S&P, this blue line is the all-time high that we just hit, and we came back to it yesterday. So we did on the SPX come back to reach all-time highs. We're fading a little bit. I'm curious if we finally have a gap fill for this first time in the last like 8 or 9 days of trading. I mean, once we had our monster CPI gap with some momentum to the upside, this market's just left these breadcrumbs like, is this going to fill a gap? I mean, it's kind of wild, right? Like 4 gaps in 9 days with essentially the bears being completely absent. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I ran a scan yesterday. I was in a final hour session on my YouTube channel. I wanted to continue to work through some of these. These are some of the stocks. And then also, let's go to, I'm going to look at some earnings for next week as well. Let me get logged in here. So here. Oops. Okay. All right. Let me look some earnings. Uh, Sparkles. I was on the institutional side for a little bit, but nobody taught me this stuff. It's been market tuition for all these years. But you know, 25 years in the markets, you tend to learn a couple things. If you learn from your mistakes, right? Yeah, you can learn from winners. But you got to learn from both. You got to learn from mistakes. So yeah, I mean, I've made some mistakes. I've been fortunate. I've never blown up an account. I've had mostly positive years through my career, but and I'm always pretty open minded. Where it's like I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to embrace other strategies. I'll experiment. I'll try different things. So I've been kind of an open-minded trader for 20 plus years. And then I kind of figure out like what I like and then what I like and I refine it. So, but yeah, a lot of time in the market. All right, earnings. Let's go earnings. Let's have a look here. So earnings calendar for next week. Oh my gosh, you freaking turds. I'm just trying to get a list of liquid stocks for next week. So that's one of the hardest things is, I like earnings like everyone else, but if we go to stock twits, look at earnings, I mean, we probably have like 2 or 300 companies next week reporting earnings. Okay, so this week we got 55 companies reporting, 11 tomorrow. Next Era Energy and Verizon, thought those were pseudo interesting. I think American Express is reporting tomorrow as well. Let's go to tomorrow. So we have American Express, Verizon, Next Era, which I thought, okay, maybe consider. But if I go to next week and look at the earnings calendar, so this is where we are right here. So for tomorrow, American Express, Next Era, and Verizon would be potential earnings plays. But next week, I would be looking at, okay, if I'm going to price in some earnings, it would be calculated based on what's green. So we've got before market, after market. What's green means liquid. But if we look at the sheer number of earnings for next week, so the nice thing is I can take from, let's see, 31 and 50 and 87 and 109. I mean, I take 314 companies and I could probably, slice that down to maybe there's 20 to 30 that I would say would be pseudo actionable. So, I mean, it's a lot of work to price in earnings. It's mostly a coin flip, but I think where we're at earnings wise for this year is I would rather be directional on earnings. I think one of the hardest things the last several years has been like I'm going to sell earnings. I'm going to sell earnings. I'm going to sell premium because the market's like going well beyond the expected moves. We've seen a lot of the big names go past the expected move, go like 2, 3 standard deviations past expectations. And if you're directionally long or short, you make a lot of money. But if you are selling premium, trying to contain those moves, that's been really, really difficult, right? Okay. So I'll price those out for next week. I'm just looking at some notables here. I do have some exposure on some of these that are already in green. I don't think I have Boeing anymore. I took Boeing at like a 155 to 175 shares. SoFi, I took some profit on. AT&T, I took some profit on. Next week, Royal Caribbean, that's been crazy bullish. Um, I've been in Royal Caribbean, Carnival Cruise Lines, Norwegian Cruise Lines, but RCL like took the cake. It's like King Cruise Line. Starbucks next week. I think we have Tesla next week as well. We have some Mag 7. I think Tesla and Apple have earnings next week. Let me find out here. So let's go to the 29th. I've got Meta with earnings, Microsoft with earnings, Tesla with earnings. That's going to be aftermarket on the 29th. The 30th, we've got Comcast. We've got Apple aftermarket. Yep. So those are the big ones. Meta, Microsoft, Apple. Those are Mag 7. So that's pretty important for next week. Apple's been beat up. I mean, Apple's like the worst performing Mag 7 stock so far this year. Yeah, so I'll be looking at some trades next week on those, see if they price out okay. And then maybe a few others that'll get sprinkled in. So I'll keep that, play that close to the vest, see what I can find. Let's see here. I did a little scan. I went through some trades yesterday. to cloud out muscle, Nvidia, Qualcomm, and the semiconductor. So what's your question, James? The $500 billion project, is it, all Nvidia, or is it you're saying it's going to crowd them out? I don't know. I mean, I think Nvidia is it's a super liquid name. It's pretty easy to trade. I have the 140 by 130. I think I did a roll on that yesterday while we were in session. Let me double check that. Nvidia here. So I have the shares. I have the 140 by 125. Yep. So I rolled the put down and rolled or kept the roll on the call out in time. So I rolled out by another month essentially, and I think I collected like $2 on that trade. So if I get it called away, let me check my break even on Nvidia here. So Nvidia, if I get it called away, the ratio spread's looking good for profit. That one's fine. And then the assignment, yeah. So I own Nvidia at $130, $130.08. So if I get it called away, I make $9.92 per share. That's a nice little flipperooski. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still think Nvidia has a crazy bar count, and so even if we get back to these highs again, I mean, clearly there was some interest in selling Nvidia at this high. And so I could see the same type of thing as we get up to the high again and we fail and Nvidia comes back down and eventually just the 200 moving average catches up. So if there's a range trade on Nvidia, okay, so what do I do with it? Well, if we come back down to these lows again, I'm probably looking at establishing some income trades. I mean, I'm not saying Nvidia is doomed. I think Nvidia has one of the biggest head starts in the space right now and probably will continue to be fine. I think that any additional like geopolitical issues out of China or issues with China, trade wars, tariffs, all this stuff, it's like Nvidia could be affected by that in a big way. I don't think traders realize it. Like if you're long, yeah, you're basically long China. So you got to consider that. So anything can happen, right? But I don't think that I don't know. I don't think China is uninvestable. I think China actually is offering a lot of good upside potential. It's just a matter of will the sad part is all government. Is the government going to allow free market flows, or is the government going to continue to put in tons and tons of restrictions? But they're essentially backstopping the property market and backstopping the equities market. But the question is, domestically and internationally, will more inflows come into China? Their yuan, so the CNH. If you look at the higher time frame, I mean, this is a heavily manipulated cross. And, I don't know if this thing is going to be breaking. Like, do we hit resistance and keep jumping around here? Like, is it a range trade? Is this making higher lows and equal highs? Because eventually, I could see something like this happening, and this would be a problem if the Chinese yuan breaks and the dollar gets stronger. That is probably not good for the dollar or good for the U.S. if the Chinese yuan gets that much weaker. So that would give them, that's the same thing the Bank of Japan did back in 2012. It's like if you intentionally weaken your currency, it puts your country, import export wise at an advantage, and it makes it difficult for the counterpart. So the dollar getting stronger could be an issue, and probably will be an issue. But I don't know if this is gonna. This is never a currency I've traded. Like the liquidity on this is awful. The margin is crazy high. For like a standard lot, you get paid like $1 or 10 cents or something. It's awful. So it's more just looking at the bigger picture of does this break? Does this break and go somewhere that it probably shouldn't be going? Is it a running loose? So I just think that's something to consider. All right. Anything else? I closed out my. I gotta update this really quickly here. So quick update. 30-cent debit reached. Okay, so that trade's done. And that is all out ahead of Trump. And he'll speak at 11. Prices again, like very, very calm this morning, which is crazy, crazy interesting. Like it's scary how calm price has been. So clearly there is something this market appears to be waiting for. And it just so happened that Trump is on the calendar at 11 o'clock. And this is what I said. Whether you like it or not, be prepared to hear from this guy every single day. You know, So, I mean, the market may use it a lot randomly for catalysts. The market may not know what to do with it, but um, there's going to be a lot of liquidity floating around where either market makers are just going to throw money at the balancing levels. Like if we have like these big reactions one way or the other, it forces market makers to defend to be delta neutral on the day, or we actually start to see some directional pushes. You know, but we'll find out. And that's in the next 30 minutes. But SPX just revisiting all-time highs and just off of them. SPY is not quite there. So my ask is, are we getting to 609 or 610, or are we getting back down to 600? Because we're going to start filling some gaps. I'm just going to put a chart alarm at 601 since that's my long put. So I have a 609 and a 601. Whatever alarm gets hit first, I'm going to look to see if I can close out for some profit. Okay, let me go back to some of these companies here. So let me, where'd it go? Fudge muffin, Finviz. Shoot, I should have saved that scan. I saved it in my, I've got a little slide deck that I worked with, so let me go find it. There we go. Okay. So let's see what this looks like here. All right, so now it's sorted by volume. So Oracle, which I did not take a trade on yesterday. I was looking at Oracle. I kind of wanted to see. I said I totally missed it. Like Oracle had a really nice move right here. Look at this freaking stock, man. Gosh darn it. It's a gap. It's a gap play. There was news on the TikTok thing. So TikTok coming back, after having like a 12-hour outage. Anyway, I did put on a ratio spread for May. I got $1.30. I'm willing to own Oracle. Fundamentally, it looks pretty good. Discount cash flow has this thing up into the 270s or 300s. But I totally missed the trade because this was a much better trade right there at the 200 and a gap fill. So that would have been obviously much better timing on my part. But I settled into this trade right here to see if I could just grab some income. I don't mind owning some Oracle. If there's a discount, I'd own it around 145 or so. And off of these recent highs, that'd be a pretty decent discount. I mean, own this thing around like 27, 28% off. So we'll see. Anyway, let's go back to the scan. Robinhood. Let's go Robinhood. Walmart. I already have some shares of Walmart. Let's go Robinhood. HOOD. Trading up to $50. I'm sure. I wonder how many Robinhood traders are happy with this. Right? Did anybody just buy Robinhood at $8 and now it's up 50 freaking bucks? Like that'd feel pretty darn good. I'm not going to do anything with this stock. I mean, this is insane. So I'm not going to short it. I'm not going to get long it. Maybe a ratio spread if the IV is high enough, but it's been going straight up. It's probably low. IV's at 45. Let me check. It might be overvalued too. So Robinhood, profitable, earnings growing, price to earnings, price to sales. Let's find out. Pretty high in the PE ratio. Yeah, I mean that. Not interested, right? So it's, I mean, good for Robinhood, but when fair value discounted cash flow shows fair value is $16, I'm not touching this thing. But that's what you're paying for. You're paying for, optimism and multiples, and I mean it's certainly in a better state than it was during GameStop in 2021 when it pretty much went bankrupt. It needed a bailout from Citadel. But anyway, I'm not going to touch it. So never mind. Let's move on to another scan. Dell, I took a trade on Dell yesterday. XP, I took a trade on XP yesterday. CCCS, USA Tech. Price is what? CCCS. Price is $11.46. What do they do? What do they look like? Not a lot of history here. It goes back to 2020. Okay. I'd set a chart alarm at $9 if fundamentally it looks okay. Okay. I mean, it checks some boxes. Crazy expensive price to earnings, though. That's a big no-no. Fair value is 15. Okay, fine. Price to sales not awful. Well, price to earnings that expensive, huh? Price to earnings way up there. Price to sales. What do they do? Let's see. Property and casualty insurance. U.S. and China. Founded in 1980, headquartered in Chicago. I see. Well, premiums are probably garbage, but I'll set a chart alarm at $9 and just see if we get a chance to get a fill. But otherwise, I'm not really. I mean, I could maybe look at a put, a nine put if it's worth anything. 74.2 Ivy rank, not too bad. Expirations are awful though. I'm going out basically every month only. We've got earnings on the 26th, and a $9 put has no bid price. So scratch it. Doesn't really look good at all. Okay, Chewy. I got some Chewy. Trading up to 37.70. My covered call I rolled down to $30. So I have some exposure here. Let me see where my expiration is on Chewy. Got it covered at 30, but I did an in the money covered call. This is out to February. I'm currently up about $2,800 on Chewy, and most likely going to get this one called away. I don't know if this is worth a roll or not. If I do a roll and I go out another week, I don't get anything for it. If I go out another really? If I go out another 30 days, they're going to make me pay for a roll at the same strike price. Come on, Chewy. But if I go out to April, I can get another 95 cents. That's another, I mean, it's like $200 more profit. I think I'm just going to get it called away in February and just walk away with my, $2,800 profit. So Chewy, it's been a good run. I've had this stock on and off since the teens. So it's been a good run with price appreciation, traded some options, got that little spike during Roaring Kitties comeback. So I'll let this one go. Fundamentally, also here, I mean, it still shows some upside potential. I mean, that's pretty solid. So having some exposure is fine. I wouldn't mind seeing like some type of dip or pullback to buy from. So if we go to the daily time frame, if we have a dip back into like any of the moving averages, I might look at establishing another core position. But if we have a dip or a pullback, I'll probably buy that dip. I like Chewy. I mean, I use it. If anybody has pets, you've probably used Chewy. Let's see here. Robin's asking, do you think his speech will push Bitcoin? I don't know, dude. I think the market's going to be wanting to move and it's going to want to do something. It's like, whether it's up or down, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, just because Trump is speaking and he likes Bitcoin doesn't mean Bitcoin goes to all-time highs. Just because he's speaking, I mean, I would say this. I'm literally looking at my order flows, which show price is likely going to find a 610 or 600. That's the best probability I have. And that's obviously saying it can go this way or it can go this way. So that's not a trade, but I'm in this trade because with options, I can trade it both ways. So a 609 long call and a 601 long put, I paid $1.05, and both of these had the potential to pay out. I mean, basically, I'm risking 55 cents on one, and I had the power to, or not the power, the option prices to pay out like $1 to $1.50 on the winner. So net, I can be neutral. It's like I don't care what Trump says. I just want to see what price does. I think it's silly to think that you can predict that his statements are always going to be bullish for the markets or bearish for the market. It hardly ever works like that. So I don't know. Could it break the highs? Sure. But would it surprise me if it pokes the highs and fades again? Could that happen? Of course. We could have just chop, you know? So just buckle up. We're what, 2 weeks into trading for the year? There's plenty of craziness ahead. Yen crosses. I don't know. Yen's got Bank of Japan's making a rate decision tonight, and they're looking to raise rates. So there could be some volatility on the yen crosses. So that I've got zero activity on the yens right now, and I wouldn't do anything with them. We got the Swiss getting weaker. That's good. So my Aussie Swiss, CAD Swiss, Euro Swiss. I stacked in a bunch of trade for the Pulver alerts yesterday on Euro Swiss. You can see that in the Pulver alerts section right here. So I stacked up a bunch of orders on Euro Swiss, and I'm looking to take this thing up towards this high. If we get back to this high, maybe that's good enough, but that's my profit target around 98.80. So if we get pullbacks, I'll add more. If we just go higher and break above the 200 moving average, I'll just stack in more. But I'm hoping this is going to turn the corner, get above the 200 moving average, get into a buy zone, and then start eating into these pockets right here. And that's profit, and that's profit. So I'm looking for that flow on Euro Swiss. Okay, yen crosses, dollar yen. You know, I could see this playing out one of two ways. Either this continues to grind back to these highs, and then this thing finally shifts into a trend line break, and we head back down and we just have a low, right? So we have a big high up here, we have a low, wait for confirmation. You can sell the dollar yen or sell the yen if it's going to get stronger. It is the trickiest and slipperiest currency pair to trade. So unless the setup is so good that I can't not take the trade, I typically just wait. So I've said this for the last couple of months. I mean, the way I'd like to trade the Japanese yen will be through Japanese yen futures, and I still can't get any contracts past September. It's not enough time. If I could, and this is what I could do. I could do this right now with FXY, and I could go out a little bit farther. I think I might take this trade actually. I think I'm going to go Japanese yen. If I can go out to 2027, which I can, I'm going to treat this like I'm doing natural gas, like I'm doing with TLT for bonds. And I think I did this on a trade yesterday for a bank. Like Barclays, I've got a trade like this where I'm just like, look, I'll give myself a 2-year window with defined risk and try to make it income in the next like 30 to 60 days. If it becomes income in the next 30 to 60 days, awesome. If it doesn't, I'll just keep, adding some sell calls and lowering the cost basis. So right now, FXY, if we made a run back to 65, I want to see what I could buy like deep in the money, right? Deep in the money, get a break even as close to 59 as possible, and then see what my break even is. So if I'm out to 2027, it's going to be pricey, but this would be a break even of around 63. That's way too much considered trading at 59. If I buy this one, 35. So 64 with a break. All of me, it's like I'm paying a lot for this. That's a lot of premium to be long. And this high is 65. That trade sucks. Right? So if I buy the 35 and I pay $30 for it, my break even is, $64. This one, my break even is $63. This break even would be 53.20. Like, it's interesting how the deeper I go, it should get cheaper for the break even, but this is 63.50. This is 63. This is 63.20. That might be the best value that I can find. If I buy the 45 for 18.20, so 45 plus 18.20, my break even is 63.20. Now, 63.20 minus 59.04, $4 premium, right? That's a 7% premium on buying this option. So I guess here's the only way I'd construct the trade would be this. I need to make this cheaper. Okay. So 63, this would be 64, this would be 64 and change. This is going to be 60, almost 65. This one's not bad. If I could get this cheaper, like this in theory should not be that expensive. In fact, I'll do this. I'm gonna try this trade, but I'm gonna sell something against it. What is current price? 59.04 minus 35. I shouldn't have to pay much more than $24 for this trade. Okay, so let me put in $25 and see if this gets filled. I doubt it will. If it doesn't, I may not take this trade because it's not going to fill me at the price that I want. But I'm going to try this trade. Not even close. So bid price is 25.60. Mid price is 27. Ask price 29. I'm definitely not paying $29 for it. Let's go 25. Let's go $26. Not feeling. So anyway, I'm going to cancel that trade. The point of the trade was this: could I buy a call out 2 years and then sell against it? That's a diagonal spread. The reason I would do that is, let's say that my break even price would be like $63. Well, if I went out to, let's say, March of this year and I sell, or actually I go a little bit further out, I guess, like June. I mean, I could sell a June 63 or 64 and get 40 to 50 cents for it. So I could get it called away, lower the cost basis, make maybe, $1 or $2 a contract. And it's like, it's an income trade. But if it doesn't get called away, then I just keep selling, keep selling, keep selling, and ultimately lower my cost basis a little bit more. But the charge on that is ridiculous. So maybe the better trade is to wait for 6J, which is Japanese yen futures, and see if I have the trade that I want. And the trade that I want, and I keep talking about this, is right here. Does this come back down to revisit this level? If this is the inverse of the dollar yen, this is where the dollar yen essentially topped out around like 160 to 161. Does the Japanese yen get back down to there again? I would like to go long with some defined risk, and I'll take that trade. So if we're down to this area, I'll probably go out like 90 to 120 days and just take a couple of bull call spreads. Because if I'm right, cool. This thing could go all the way up here. And I'm only going to make the defined risk profit. So maybe I can make, $300 to risk $200. That's okay. Well, if I do that, 3 times, I make 900 for risk of 600 and I get paid. It's just an income trade. But that to me is the cleanest way. That to me is the cleanest way to position for something like this, where price could go all the way down here and my risk is defined. Price could go all the way up here. I'd obviously like to have the upside, unlimited profit potential, but it just gets more expensive, and I'm clearly showing that there's a lot of premium I'm paying there. So I don't want to do that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on yen. It's like, watch it. There's Bank of Japan tonight. Likely, I mean, it shows here in the calendar they're going to raise rates by 25 basis points. Does that give us a lot of moving and shaking into the currency market overnight? I don't know, maybe. So something to watch for. Does the Japanese yen start to move a little bit? On that note, it's like, I don't know. Let me see what the price looks like here. If I do 6J out to September, if I buy an at the money and I sell, so I risk 275 to make 350. I risk 5 to make 725. I risk 250 to make 375. Like, those aren't terrible trades, right? It's a debit spread. There's no assignment risk here. But 0.00665 00665 is 665 would be up in here. So if the Japanese yen were to come up to this area, then I get roughly $400 profit for about a $200 risk. Okay, and I have until September. So is that enough time to see that Japanese yen is raising rates? Does the market do what I want it to do, or does the market do the opposite? I mean, it's still not a bad trade, but if I take trade 1 here and we go lower, I might take a trade 2 with the same type of reward to risk profile. So I mean, I'm just debating. So I don't know. I don't mind this trade. 475 to make 775. What's the return on capital here? So 375 over 250. So 375 over 250 is 150% return on risk. 775 is 163% return on risk. Okay. This one's not bad. So 1200 over 675, 177%. I mean, I'm taking a risk on the trade, that is for sure. What's that sell side? 675. Yeah, I mean, that risk is fair. I think that's fair. That's like a, quarter 1% risk for a 0.5 to 0.75% gain. think I'm ready to finally pull the trigger on some Japanese yen. So I'm going out to the longest futures contract that I can get right now, which is September 2025. Let's find out. So I'm going to try to take this trade 5-4 fill. I don't want to go too much higher than that because I'm going to try to keep this under max risk would be like $700. Hopefully I can get it filled for a little bit less, but we'll see. So I'm going to go one strike up out of the money, a couple strikes out for some profit potential. And that way I get a little bit of freedom to see if this thing can rip. Now, the reality is my max profit is $1,200. If this instrument goes up, to here and then up here and up here, I may not take the full $1,200 profit because that is waiting all the way to expiration. But if I can turn this into, $700 to $1,000 of profit, I will probably take the profit early. Okay, but I think I'm ready to place a trade here. So let's try it. 675 risk, max risk, no assignment risk. This is a clean way for me to trade Japanese yen without having all the wild and crazy garbage and intervention with Forex. So I'm going to try to take this trade. Okay, see if this will fill. So pending order. I'll go one little bit above that, brings my risk up a little bit higher. See if this will fill. All right, just got filled. Okay, I'm going to get this in. So similar. Okay, I'm going to let that pend. I got filled on one account. I'm going to let that pend. I'm going to put this in for everybody here. So similar, throw this in for everybody. Okay. 7-2. All right, a couple more accounts. Okay, so I have the 6. So the 6-6. So this is a September. What's the expiration? September 5th. So 9-5 expiration. 0.0066. 5.00675. Yep. And it got filled for how many zeros to that trade? 0.000055. So it works out to be about a 687.50 risk for a 1187 profit. Okay, so there is that trade, and I'll put the alert over 00675. 675, and that is above bull call spread level. So I can check P&L. Okay, so if it gets above this level, there's good profit potential. If it gets all the way up to this level, then I'm looking, even if it's early in the trade with a lot of time left, I should be able to get a majority of that profit. Okay. Ak is asking if I trade exotics. I did. I traded quite a bit back in the day. I traded the peso, the South African rand, the Russian ruble, the Norwegian krone. I traded a lot of those back in the day, and they're okay. I wouldn't say that I made a ton of money on them. I'm trying to think which one. I traded the Turkish lira and made some money when that thing broke, essentially, which, by the way, I haven't looked at the Turkish lira in a while, but what's it done? Oh, it's broken. It's still broken. I traded the Turkish lira when this thing was doing this. So when this thing ripped up here, I bought this breakout and just rode that for a couple of months. But I cannot, like, this is still freaking broken. This is insane. Like, this is one of the biggest bar counts that I've ever seen in a currency. This is a daily chart, and I think we go back even further. This is insane. We go from 1,000 bars on the Turkish lira, and that is why exotic pairs can be the best or the worst, right? Because when we had crazy intervention, we had this massive reversion trade, but it just picked right back up, and buy the dip, bull flag, and off we go back to the highs again. Another breakout trade, another breakout trade. This thing just trends. It's just nuts. So I've dabbled, but I traded the peso a lot. I actually made some pretty good profits on the peso, quite a bit. Um, but after like Trump in 2016 and 2020, like I stopped trading the peso. It was like too messy, too volatile. There's too much animosity and contention with like everything he says about Mexico, and we're going to call it the Gulf of America now. We're going to put 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. It's like that crap that impacts a highly volatile currency pair. It's like I'm not going to deal with it. So yeah, I stopped trading exotics. Now it's just I want liquidity. I want boring. I'd rather trade boring. I trade a lot of boring currencies. All right. Trump speak. Yeah, let's see if there's anything popping up in the news. We'll see. Watch live. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to watch it live. I'm just curious if there any major headlines coming in. Currency strength. We'll see if anything price action wise. So the dollar yen or the yen is getting stronger. That just popped through the last couple of minutes, and Swiss getting weaker. That's good for my positions. Anyway, we'll see. But if we see any headlines, there we go. I'm going to go back to my scanner. So Dell, I took a trade on yesterday. Walmart, I took a trade. I've got a collar trade on that. XP, I took a trade. Chewy, I'm already in. AppLovin, I looked at yesterday. That thing's up like 1,000 or something ridiculous. So I'm not going to take that trade. Enterprise products, that's not that's energy. Okay. I'm already in XLE, so I don't really want to add a bunch of stock picks for energy. I've got some Chevron and ExxonMobil. Airbnb, let's take a look at this one. Airbnb. Profit margins lower. I think it's had a pretty good run. 45 price to earnings. Good. I mean, if people are still visiting, still working. All right, let's check it. Airbnb. 132. This actually could be ratio spread territory. Yeah, I'm gonna take a look. I might take this trade. I like this one. I traded Airbnb quite a bit back during COVID, like post COVID when this thing like IPO'd. It wasn't a SPAC play; it was an IPO. One of the few SPACs were very popular back during COVID, and they turned out to be garbage, which was the 2022 reset. But we had some really nice levels. So I traded a lot off this $130 support, made some gains there, and then back down once we broke 100, made some gains there. I'll do kind of the same thing. Like if this stock, if I get some ratio spread levels, like I would be willing to own this stock as cheap as possible, obviously. But where? Right? I mean, I'd like to say 100 or less to be starting it. So there's 112, there's 103, and then down here is 90. All right, getting filled on those other Japanese yen futures trades. I need to mark this one in my personal tracker real quick. Give me a second. So Japanese yen, 6J, bull call spread, all accounts. September 5th expiration, 0.0. So 0066, 675. So it's a 687 risk for 1183 profit. Okay, let's try Airbnb. SPY's moving up a little bit. See if there's any comments coming out of Trump. Retail sales, termination of enforcement action, 70 billion 5-year notes, 84 billion 13-year bill, 13-week bills, 2-year. It's like, man, we're just selling freaking bonds. What are the yields doing? Real quick, spot check on yields. 10 years up 1%. Everyone got all excited. It's probably just a pullback. Bonds are probably going higher. This is going to put a lot of pressure. This puts pressure on growth. It's that simple. It may not really take effect and hurt equities until the second half of the year when things are coming, due. But I just the closer we get to 5% or the more we get above 5%, I don't know how the market can make all-time highs at all. Dollar Swiss, I'm already out of that trade. I closed out dollar Swiss. All my positions got hit at 92. So I was long all the way in here. So equal lows, trend line breaks, equal lows, stacked up orders, a lot of positions. Took profit at 92. So that trade is done for me right now. I'm in all the other Swiss pairs though. I'm in Aussie, CAD, Euro, Pound, New Zealand, Swiss. I'm long on all those. For it's swap and it's hopefully pip moves as well. All right, back to Airbnb. I'll look at this trade. So I like it. Maybe the best way to start, if I can get a ratio spread in, that's probably one of my favorite trades. But if I have to do like a naked put, I might do that as well. We have earnings on February 11th. I'm going to go out like 57 days to March. And the premiums are absolutely garbage, but maybe this like 115 by 110 would be not be a bad start. So I get that trade maybe there. 105 times 2.
What's up, Chris?
How are you, man?
Pretty good. So didn't mean to interrupt. I'm pulling up the Trump thing if you want to listen to it for a minute.
You're going to make me listen to it?
Yeah, I heard you really love him.
Yeah, I'm just like, please, I don't know how to get it on here. I want to listen to it, everything he says. Yeah, sure, let's do it.
I just want to see what he has to say for a minute.
Okay. If we get a directional move towards 610 on SPY, that's what I'm watching.
The forthcoming policies have been at
you
the
guys hear this?
focus of our discussions.
Is this the guy that says you'll rent everything and like it, or you'll own nothing and like it?
Maybe.
3,000 political and business leaders from over 130 countries who came together here in Davos. We look forward hearing first from you and then to the
those in the audience, how's the sound? Is it okay?
With business leaders, moderated by my colleague Børge Brende. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Well, thank you very much, Klaus, and hello to everyone in beautiful Davos. This has been a truly historic week in the United States. 3 days ago, I took the oath of office and we began the golden age of America. The recent presidential election was won by millions of votes, and all 7, every one of them, all 7 swing states. It was a massive mandate from the American people like hasn't been seen in many years. And some of the political pundits, even some of my so-called enemies, said it was the most consequential election victory in 129 years. That's quite nice. What the world has witnessed in the past 72 hours is nothing less than a revolution of common sense. Our country will soon be stronger, wealthier, and more united than ever before, and the entire planet will be more peaceful and prosperous as a result of this incredible momentum and what we're doing and going to do. My administration is acting with unprecedented speed to fix the disasters we've inherited from a totally inept group of people and to solve every single crisis facing our country. This begins with confronting the economic chaos caused by the failed policies of the last administration. Over the past 4 years, our government racked up $8 trillion in wasteful deficit spending and inflicted nation-wrecking energy restrictions, crippling regulations, and hidden taxes like never before. The result is the worst inflation crisis in modern history and sky-high interest rates for our citizens and even throughout the world. Food prices and the price of almost every other thing known to mankind went through the roof. President Biden totally lost control of what was going on in our country, but in particular with our high inflation economy and at our border. Because of these ruinous policies, total government spending this year is $1.5 trillion higher than was projected to occur when I left office just 4 years ago. Likewise, the cost of servicing the debt is more than 230% higher than was projected in 2020. The inflation rate we are inheriting remains 50% higher than the historic target. It was the highest inflation probably in the history of our country. That's why from the moment I took office, I've taken rapid action to reverse each and every one of these radical left policies that created this calamity, in particular with immigration, crime, and inflation. On day one, I signed an executive order directing every member of my cabinet to marshal all powers at their disposal to defeat inflation and reduce the cost of daily life. I imposed a federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, a foreign aid freeze, and I created the new Department of Government Efficiency. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate. We're going to let people buy the car they want to buy. I declared a national energy emergency, and that's so important, national energy emergency to unlock the liquid gold under our feet and pave the way for rapid approvals of new energy infrastructure. The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services, it'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto. My administration has also begun the largest deregulation campaign in history, far exceeding even the record-setting efforts of my last term. In total, the Biden administration imposed $50,000 in additional regulatory costs on the average American household over the last 4 years. I have promised to eliminate 10 old regulations for every new regulation, which will soon put many thousands of dollars back in the pockets of American families. To further unleash our economy, our majorities in the House and Senate, which we also took along with the presidency, are going to pass the largest tax cut in American history, including massive tax cuts for workers and family, and big tax cuts for domestic producers and manufacturers. And we're working with the Democrats on getting an extension of the original Trump tax cuts, as you probably know, by just reading any paper. My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply, you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. Under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA. Already Americans' economic, you can see this, I think, maybe even in your wonderful, wonderful room that you're all gathered together, so many of my friends, but Americans, the economic confidence is soaring like we haven't seen in many, many decades, maybe not at all. Upon my election, it was just announced that small business optimism skyrocketed by 41 points in a single month. That's the highest ever. There's never been anything like that. SoftBank has announced between a $100 and $200 billion investment in the U.S. economy because of the election result. And just 2 days ago, Oracle, SoftBank, and OpenAI announced a $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure. Other companies likewise have announced billions and billions and billions, adding up to trillions of investment in America, in the United States. And it's also reported today in the papers that Saudi Arabia we'll be investing at least $600 billion in America, but I'll be asking the Crown Prince, who's a fantastic guy, to round it out to around 1 trillion. I think they'll do that because we've been very good to them. And I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love by them not doing it. I was a little surprised by that. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. Right now, the price is high enough that that war will continue. You got to bring down the oil price. You got to end that war. They should have done it long ago. They're very responsible, actually, to a certain extent for what's taking place. Millions of lives are being lost. With oil prices going down, I'll demand that interest rates drop immediately, and likewise, they should be dropping all over the world. Interest rates should follow us. All over, the progress that you're seeing is happening because of our historic victory in a recent presidential election, one that has become quite well known throughout the world. I think a lot of things are happening to a lot of countries. They say that there's light shining all over the world since the election, and even countries that we aren't particularly friendly with are happy because they understand what there is a future and how great the future will be. Under our leadership, America is back and open for business. And this week, I'm also taking swift action to stop the invasion at our southern border. They allowed people to come in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It was ridiculous. I decided and declared to do, and very, very importantly, a national emergency on our border, immediately halted all entry of illegal border crossers, of which there were many, and began promptly returning the illegal trespassers back to the place from which they came. That action, as you've probably seen, has already started very strongly. I've deployed active duty U.S. military and National Guard troops to the border to assist in repelling the invasion. It was really an invasion. We will not allow our territory to be violated. After 4 long years, the United States is strong and sovereign and a beautiful nation. Once again, it's a strong, sovereign nation. In addition, I'm pleased to report that America is also a free nation once again. On day one, I signed an executive order to stop all government censorship. No longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation, which are the favorite words of censors and those who wish to stop the free exchange of ideas and, frankly, progress. We have saved free speech in America, and we've saved it strongly. With another historic executive order this week, I also ended the weaponization of law enforcement against the American people and, frankly, against politicians, and restored the fair, equal, and impartial rule of law. My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense. And these are policies that were absolute nonsense throughout the government and the private sector. With the recent yet somewhat unexpected great Supreme Court decision just made, America will once again become a merit-based country. You have to hear that word, merit-based country. And I've made it official, an official policy of the United States, that there are only 2 genders, male and female. And we will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender operations, which became the rage, will occur very rarely. Finally, as we restore common sense in America, we're moving quickly to bring back strength and peace and stability abroad. I'm also going to ask all NATO nations to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP, which is what it should have been years ago. It was only at 2%, and most nations didn't pay until I came along. I insisted that they pay, and they did, because the United States was really paying the difference at that time, and it was unfair to the United States. But many, many things have been unfair for many years to the United States. Before even taking office, my team negotiated a ceasefire agreement in the Middle East, which wouldn't have happened without us, as I think most of the people in the room know. Earlier this week, the hostages began to return to their families. They are returning, and it's a beautiful sight, and they'll be coming in more and more. They started coming back on Sunday. Our efforts to secure a peace settlement between Russia and Ukraine are now hopefully underway. It's so important to get that done. That is an absolute killing field. Millions of soldiers are being killed. Nobody's seen anything like it since World War II. They're laying dead all over the flat fields. It's a flat field farmland, and there's millions of Russians and millions of Ukrainians. Nobody's seen anything like it since World War II. It's time to end it. And here in America, we have big events coming up. Next year, we have the 250th anniversary of America's founding. I'm so honored to be president during that. That's been a big event. They've been talking about it for 10 years. We also have the World Cup. And I understand Gianni's in the room. Infantino, he was very instrumental in helping us get it. He's there with you someplace, I think. And I want to thank him for that. And then we have the Olympics coming up, which I was instrumental in getting also in my first term. And who would have known that by skipping a term, I would get the Olympics? I was upset. I said, you know, I got the Olympics to come and I won't be president. But it turned out through a stroke of luck, or whatever you might call it, that I'm going to be president during the World Cup and the Olympics and the 250th anniversary. So that's going to be 3 big events. And we've accomplished more in less than 4 days. We have really been working 4 days than other administrations have accomplished in 4 years. And we're just getting started. It's really an amazing thing to see, and the spirit and the light over our country has been incredible. Under the last administration, our nation has suffered greatly, but we're going to bring it back and make it greater, bigger, stronger, better than ever before. I want to thank everybody for being with you. I would have been there myself, except the inauguration was 2 days ago. I thought it might be a little bit quick to make it the first stop, but we'll get there one day. We hope to get there. But I do appreciate, I heard the audience is fantastic, and many of my friends are in the audience, and I will be taking questions now from some very distinguished people. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that very powerful speech. And I think you could hear the applause all the way from Davos to the White House. But next year it will be even better, because then you can get the applause here in Davos. So we wish you welcome to our village next year. We hope to see you.
Thank you very much.
So we also know, Mr. President, that you open up for interaction here. We have a great panel with some of the most distinguished business people in the world. Let me start with someone that you know really well, that I think is almost a neighbor of you in in Florida. Mr. Steve Schwartzman, Chairman, CEO, and co-founder Blackstone Group. So, Steve, floor is yours.
Well, Mr. President, I'm sure the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia will be really glad you gave this speech today. You've had the busiest 4 days that anybody can imagine, and congratulations for that. My question is about some of the things I've observed here at Davos. It's a terrific forum. I've met lots of people, as usual. I think I've been here 30 years. And a lot of the European business people have expressed enormous frustration with the regulatory regime in the EU. And they attribute slower growth rates here because of the numerous factors, but especially because of regulations. And you've taken a completely different approach in this area. And if you could explain the theory of what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and what you expect the outcome to be, I'd appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. And congratulations, Steve. You're a friend of mine, but on a great career. You have had an amazing career and it continues. I just want to congratulate you. Very inspirational to a lot of people. I want to talk about the EU because you mentioned specifically that I've also had a lot of friends and leaders of countries. I've gotten to know them all my first term and a little bit during this period of 4 years and know them well, like them a lot. But they're very frustrated because of the time everything seems to take to get approved, environmental impact statements for things that you shouldn't even have to do that, and many, many other ways that it takes. And I'm going to give you a quick little example. In the private life, my beautiful private life, before I had all these things happening, the world is a little different. I had a nice, simple life. You knew that. But when I had that simple life, I did projects, and I had a big project in Ireland, and it had to get approval on something that would have made it even better. And I got the approval from Ireland in a period of a week. And it was a very, very, very efficient, good approval. And they informed me, though, the problem is you're going to have to get it from the EU, and we think that'll take 5 to 6 years. And I said, you have to be kidding. And this was before politics. And I said, wait a minute, it's not that important. I don't want to go 5 or 6 years, but it would have been a big investment. It would have been nice, and it would have been good for the project. And I sent the people to the EU to see if they could speed it up. And basically it was a 5 or 6 year wait just to get a simple approval that Ireland gave me in a period of literally not much more than a week. And I realized right then, that was the first time I really was involved with the EU, but I realized right then that's a problem. And I didn't even bother applying to do it. Or if I did, I pulled it very quickly. I have to be very accurate because I don't want to be criticized. He did apply, actually. No, I want to be very accurate. So I don't think I did, but if I did, I pulled it very quickly. It was just something you couldn't wait 5 years or 6 years to get an approval. So a lot of, in a very big business sense, a lot of people are claiming that's the problem. From the standpoint of America, the EU treats us very, very unfairly, very badly. They have a large tax that we know about, and a VAT tax, and it's a very substantial one. They don't take essentially don't take our farm products, and they don't take our cars, yet they send cars to us by the millions. They put tariffs on things that we want to do. Like, for instance, I think they actually, in terms of these are non-economic or non-monetary tariffs, and those are very bad, and they make it very difficult to bring products into Europe, and yet they expect to be selling, and they do sell their products in the United States. So we have, hundreds of billions of dollars of deficits with the EU, and nobody's happy with it, and we're going to do something about it, but nobody's happy with it. So I think the EU has to speed up their process. Friends of mine that are in some of the nations within the EU, great people, they want to be able to compete better, and you can't compete when you can't go through the approval process fast. There's no reason why it can't go faster. So, I'm trying to be constructive because I love Europe. I love the countries of Europe, but the process is a very cumbersome one. And they do treat the United States of America very, very unfairly with the VAT taxes and all of the other taxes they impose. One other, just to finish up, I got a call from the head of a major airline, one of the biggest airlines in the world. And he said, sir, could you help us? What? Landing in Europe is brutal. They charge us fees for everything, and it's so unfair. I said, how does it compare to China? He said, it's much worse. And the other thing, as you know, they took court cases with Apple, and they supposedly won a case that most people didn't think was much of a case. They won 15 or 16 billion from Apple. They won billions from Google. I think they're after Facebook for billions and billions. These are American companies, whether you like them or not. They're American companies, and they shouldn't be doing that. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a form of taxation. So we have some very big complaints with the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We'll now go to one of your friends in the EU, Patrick Pouyanné. He's the chairman CEO of Total Energies. I guess you have a question ready, Patrick, for the president.
Mr. President, as we understand, energy is at the top of your agenda, and it's an honor for me to represent the energy industry tonight. In this panel, Total Energies is indeed the fourth largest oil and gas and electricity company in the world. I will not ask you a question about the oil price. It's quite clear what you expect from us. I will go to gas more. And our company is the largest #1 exporter LNG from the US company. We are a strong contributor to, and we invest in a mammoth LNG projects in Texas, $20 billion. It's far from 200, but it's $20 billion. And we contribute with that to security of supply to Europe as we export this LNG to Europe. Some experts fear that if there are too many projects developed in the US on LNG, this could have an inflationary impact on the US domestic gas price. And they recommend a pause on these projects. I would ask you the following question. What are your views about such a pause on investments on LNG in the US? What would happen if you would observe an increased domestic gas price because of these exports? And final question, which is important for Europe, would you agree to guarantee security of supplies of US LNG to Europe?
Well, on the last part of your question, yes, I would. I would make sure that you get it. If we make a deal, we make a deal, you'll get it. Because a lot of people do have that problem. They make a deal and then it can't get supplied because of war-type problems and other problems. So we would absolutely do that. LNG is very interesting because when I took office for the first term, one of the first things I looked at was there were two very massive plants in Louisiana, a state that has been very good to me, won it by many, many points. And I felt strongly indebted to it, actually. And they said there are two plants that have been under environmental consideration for more than 10 years. And they were costing, as you say, you know how expensive those plants are, but they were costing like 12 billion and I think 14 or 15 billion, but they couldn't get their permits. They were in review for years, many, many years, like a decade or more. And I said, so ridiculous. I know so much about that because in the construction industry, I had to go through it too, but I got good at it after a while. But I saw the projects, and you're talking about a total investment of 25 to $30 billion, and it looked like it was going to end. They couldn't get their permits, and I got them done in less than a week. It was done, completed. In fact, when they called them to announce that it was done, the countries, largely countries, Japan was involved and another country and some very big investors, they couldn't believe it. They actually couldn't believe it. And I said, just do yourself one favor. Don't pay any consultants, because the only one that got it done was me. I got it done because it was the right thing to do for the U.S. and for the world, but the consultants had nothing to do with it. You know, the consultants go in and they say, give us millions of dollars because Trump did it. Nobody called me about it. I just heard it was a problem for years. And I got it done because it was the right thing to do for the U.S. and the right thing to do for beyond. It had to do with energy, very important. So I think it's very important. I think I disagree with one. I think the more that you do, the lower the price is going to go. And what I'd like to see is rapid approvals. We're going to give very rapid approvals in the United States, like with the AI plants, talking to many people want to build them. That's going to be a very big thing. We're going to build electric generating facilities. They are going to build. I'm going to get them the approval. Under emergency declaration, I can get the approvals done myself without having to go through years of waiting. And the big problem is we need double the energy we currently have in the United States. Can you imagine? For AI to really be as big as we want to have it, because it's a very competitive, it'll be very competitive with China and others. So I'm going to give emergency declarations so that they can start building them almost immediately. And I think it was largely my idea because nobody thought this was possible. It wasn't that they were not smart, because they're the smartest, but I told them that what I want you to do is build your electric generating plant right next to your plant as a separate building connected. And they said, wow, you're kidding. And I said, no, I'm not kidding. You don't have to hook into the grid, which is old and, could be taken out. If it's taken out, they wouldn't have any way to get any electricity. So we are going to allow them to go on a very rapid basis to build their plant, build the electric generating plant. They can fuel it with anything they want, and they may have coal as a backup, good, clean coal. If there were a problem with a pipe coming in, as an example, you're going with gas, oil or gas, and a pipe gets blown up or for some reason doesn't work, there are some companies in the U.S. that have coal sitting right by the plant so that if there's an emergency, they can go to that short-term basis and use our very clean coal. So that's something else that a lot of people didn't even know about, but nothing can destroy coal, not the weather, not a bomb, nothing. It might make it a little smaller, might make it a little different shape, but coal is very strong as a backup. It's a great backup to have that facility, and it wouldn't cost much more money. And we have more coal than anybody. We also have more oil and gas than anybody. So we're going to make it so that the plants will have their own electric generating facilities attached right to their plant. They don't have to worry about a utility. They don't have to worry about anything. And we're going to get very rapid approvals.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President. We'll now go to another CEO that you know very well, Brian Moynihan, the CEO and chair of Bank of America.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, and congratulations, and obviously an eventful week for you and your family. If you remember 5 years ago, you came here and we walked among 150 CEOs from all over the world, and you engaged with them about your policies and your procedures. This year, you're not here, and yet this week was eventful from the orders that you mentioned earlier, literally a wave of orders coming out on immigration, on trade, and many other matters. And so, as a representative of the United States here, we got a lot of questions about what does all this mean and how would the president square this with his clear focus on growth, prosperity, market growth, stock market growth, a good bond market, and bringing down prices. So how do you think about the impact of all these orders and how fast they come out, and how you're going to balance them with that scorecard of being successful in both continuing GDP growth, bringing down inflation, and also having a good stock price appreciation for the American citizen?
Well, I think it's going to actually bring down inflation. It's going to bring up jobs. We're going to have a lot of jobs. We're going to have a lot of companies moving in. Brian, we're at 21%. It was at 40%, and I got it down to 21%, the corporate tax. And it was actually, if you look at state and city, it was in many cases much higher than 40%. I got it down to 21%. And now we're going to bring it down from 21 to 15% if, there's a big if you make your product in the U.S. So we're going to have the lowest, just about the lowest rate. It'll be, the 21 is on the low side worldwide. The 15 is about as low as it gets. And by far the lowest of a large country, a large, rich, powerful country by far, not even a contest. So we're going to bring it down to 15% if you make your product in the USA. So that's going to create a tremendous buzz. We're also probably going back to the 1 year deduction where we deduct, we did that originally, and that was amazing what the impact that had, the 1 year deduction, which built up over a period of time and then it expires. But we're going to go back to that when we do the renewal of the Trump tax plan. We have to get Democrats to approve it. But, if the Democrats didn't approve it, I don't know how they can survive with about a 45% tax increase, because that's what it would be. And so I think they're going to be, we've been working along with them pretty well. I think it's very hard for a political group to say, let's charge people 45% more. So I think we're in good shape, but we're actually doing a reduction for business and small businesses where you're going to bring it down to 15%, which is really something. And by the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank. And that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business.
Trump
and I don't
does
know if
not
the
mess around,
regulators
man.
mandated that because of Biden or
Swinging
what,
at the
but
Bank of America
you
CEO.
and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives because what you're doing is wrong.
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll now go to Ana Butin. She's the executive chairman of Banco Santander, one of the big European banks, and also in the US. So, Ana.
Mr. President, congratulations on a historic victory. I believe you don't know me as well as my fellow panelists, so a few words. Santander is one of the largest banks in the world by number of customers, 170 million. That's more than my friend Brian or my friend Jamie have. And those...
They fixed the regulation.
That's coming, that's coming.
That was cheeky.
We're a big investor in the United States. We have many million customers, 12,000 employees. We're one of the largest auto lenders. And we recently launched a fully digital bank called Open Bank. We strongly believe banks have a pivotal role in the economy, and we can accelerate growth and help many more customers. That's what we're doing in the United States. So, as Brian pointed out, we very much welcome your focus on deregulation and reducing bureaucracy. So my question is, what are your priorities in this regard, and how fast is this going to happen? Thank you very much.
I think it's going to, thank you and congratulations. I know very much about your bank, and you've done a fantastic job. Congratulations. We are going to move very quickly. We've moved very quickly. We've done things in the last 3 days that nobody thought were possible to do in years. And it's all taking effect. It's going to have a huge impact on the economy, a huge positive impact. Money was being wasted on crazy things. I mean, the Green New Deal was such a total disgrace. How that was perpetrated, and it was conceived of by people that were average students, less than average students, I might add, and never even took a course in energy or the environment. It was just a game. Remember, the world was going to end in 12 years. Remember that? Well, the 12 years has come and gone. It was going to end. It was going to all foam into earth. But, you know, the time has come. These people, and they really scared the Democrats large. I can't say the Republicans. The Republicans maybe could have fought harder to stop it, but it's been a tremendous waste of money. You know, during my 4 years, we had the cleanest air, we had the cleanest water, and yet we had the most productive economy in the history of our country. We had the most productive economy until COVID came. We had the most productive in the history of our country by far. And actually, you can look worldwide. We were beating everybody from China to everybody else. So, and we think we really now, with what we have learned and all of the other things that have taken place, we think we can even far surpass that. Actually, far surpass it. But we do. One thing we're going to be demanding is we're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years. And it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit. We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody. So, you know, just as an example, with Mexico, we're dealing with Mexico, I think, very well. And we're just, you know, we just want to be treated fairly with other nations, because there's hardly a nation in the world, and I blame this on us, and I blame it on politicians that, for some reason, I'm probably mostly it's stupidity, but you could also say other reasons, but mostly stupidity. They've allowed other nations to take advantage of the U.S., and we can't allow that to happen anymore. You know, we have debt. it's a very small debt when you compare it to value, the value of the assets that we have. But we don't want to do that. We want to just have debt be obliterated, and we'll be able to do that fairly rapidly. And a lot of good things are going to happen. And honestly, good things are going to happen for the world, and good things are going to happen for the people that are dealing with us, allies and beyond allies. One thing very important, I really would like to be able to meet with President Putin soon and get that war ended. And that's not from the standpoint of economy or anything else. It's from the standpoint of millions of lives are being wasted. Beautiful young people are being shot in the battlefield. You know, the bullet, very flat land, as I said, and the bullet goes, there's no hiding. And a bullet, the only thing going to stop the bullet is a human body. And you have to see, I've seen pictures of what's taken place. It's a carnage, and we really have to stop that war. That war is horrible. And I'm not talking economy. I'm not talking economics. I'm not talking about natural resource. I'm just talking about there's so many young people being killed in this war. And that's not including the people that have been killed as the cities are being, you know, knocked down building by building. So we really should get that stopped. Likewise, in the Middle East, I think we've made a lot of progress in the Middle East, and I think that's gonna come along pretty well.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we know that the most consequential relationship in the world is between the U.S. and China. U.S. 28% of the global economy, China close to 20. That's almost half of the global GDP. And we know that you called President Xi Jinping last Friday. We heard that you had a good discussion. How do you see the relationship between the U.S. and China in the next 4 years under your leadership?
He called me, but I see it very good. I think that we're going to have a very good relationship. All we want is fairness. We just want a level playing field. We don't want to take advantage. We've been having massive deficits with China. Biden allowed it to get out of hand. He's $1.1 trillion deficit. It's ridiculous. And it's just an unfair relationship. And we have to make it just fair. We don't have to make it phenomenal. We have to make it a fair relationship. Right now, it's not a fair relationship. The deficit is massive, as it is with other countries, a lot of Asian countries, actually. But we have deficits that are very big, and we can't keep doing that. So we're not going to keep doing that. But I like President Xi very much. I've always liked him. We always had a very good relationship. It was very strained with COVID coming out of Wuhan. Obviously, that strained it. I'm sure it strained it with a lot of people, but that strained our relationship. But we always had a great relationship, I would say, and we look forward to doing very well with China and getting along with China. Hopefully, China can help us stop the war with, in particular, Russia, Ukraine. And they have a great deal of power over that situation. And we'll work with them. And I mentioned that with during our phone conversation with President Xi. And hopefully we could work together and get that stopped. We'd like to see denuclearization. In fact, with President Putin prior to an election result, which was frankly ridiculous, we were talking about denuclearization of our two countries, and China would have come along. China has a much smaller right now nuclear armament than us, or field than us, but they're going to be catching it at some point over the next 4 or 5 years. And I will tell you that President Putin really liked the idea of cutting way back on nuclear. And I think the rest of the world, we would have gotten them to follow. And China would have come along too. China also liked it. Tremendous amounts of money are being spent on nuclear. And the destructive capability is something that we don't even want to talk about today because you don't want to hear it. It's too depressing. So we want to see if we can denuclearize, and I think that's very possible. And I can tell you that President Putin wanted to do it. He and I wanted to do it. We had a good conversation with China. They would have been involved, and that would have been an unbelievable thing for the planet.
Mr. President, when you're back here in Davos next year, will there be then a peace agreement with Ukraine and Russia by then?
Well, you're going to have to ask Russia. Ukraine is ready to make a deal. just so you understand, this is a war that should have never started. If I were president, it would never have started. This is a war that should have never, ever been started. And it wasn't started during there was never even talk about it. I knew that it was the apple of President Putin's eye, but I also knew that there was no way he was going in, and he wasn't going to go in. And then when I was out, bad things happened, bad things were said, a lot of stupidity all around, and you end up with what you have. Now you have all these bombed out cities. They look like demolition sites with many people killed. I think the thing that you'll see about Ukraine is that far more people have died than is being reported. And I've seen that. But far, far more people have died. When you look at a city that's become a demolition site where big buildings have been collapsed by missiles hitting them and everything else, and they say one person was slightly injured. No, many people were killed. Those are big buildings. I was surprised at how that was my business. These are buildings that go 2 and 3 blocks long. They're 20 stories high. They're big, powerful buildings, and they were knocked down, and there were a lot of people in those buildings that announced that 2 people were injured. That's not true. So I think you're going to find that there were many more people killed in Ukraine in the Ukraine war than anybody has any idea. But if you look now, so many of the people being killed are soldiers just facing each other with guns, rifles, and drones, the new form of warfare, drones. And it's a very sad thing to see. And when you see pictures of the fields that I see, nobody wants to see it. You'll never be the same.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, on behalf of all the 3,000 participants here in Davos. We really underline that joining us the third day in your presidency, live taking questions here is so appreciated. And we are already ready for receiving you next year in person. So thank you very much, and all the best from Davos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. We're done. Relieved of duty, Chris. That went on a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I was taking some notes. Just wanted to share for those who maybe joined in late. If I missed anything, Chris, add in here. But basically, in terms of, and I sent this message, by the way, off air just to Chris. Whether you like Trump or not, it seems like for markets focus, seems like we're going to enter into a period, at least in my opinion, where fiscal policy is more in focus even than what the Fed is doing. The Fed's going to be kind of trailing what's happening in fiscal, I think, to try and, control inflation if need be. But a couple highlight things. Oil prices, he kept saying he wants oil prices lower. He wants less regulation for U.S. oil producers. He seemed pretty tough on Canada specifically, and continued to kind of undermine them a little bit, saying they could be the 51st state if they wanted to, which is, sorry to our Canadian friends. Strong on immigration. Make your tariffs in the U.S. You get tax benefits. Make it outside. You pay for tariffs, or pay tariffs to essentially access the strongest consumer base in the world, the USA. Sounds optimistic on China, which actually kind of surprised me. I thought he was going to be more. He seemed more hard on EU stuff than and Canada than he did even on China there. Seems like he's at least window dressing for Russia and China, wants to make some resolutions there. We'll see what happens. Continuously reiterated that he wants to stop the Russian war. Partially blames OPEC, by the way, for refusing to reduce oil prices. Contributes that to part of the reason the Russia and Ukraine war is still going on. Frustrated with EU regulations plus military spending to GDP ratio. He mentioned that he thinks the U.S. is paying the difference from the less spending of other places. And then he wanted to denuclearize with Putin. Any other things, Chris, that you heard that I didn't add on this list that you think were big, or did I pretty much capture it?
Nope, you captured it.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it's good. I mean, in all seriousness, it's like, I just think it's 4 more years of this. I mean, whether you like him or not, he's going to be making comments and making headlines every single day. Look, I think it's interesting to take as far as geopolitical tensions go. If we actually have, some progress in Russia, some, I don't know if we call them frenemies, but like if we're frenemies with China or frenemies with Russia, I'm curious, like, it's almost like our trade allies are the ones that we're going to be the toughest on. I mean, Europe would love to have us provide the natural gas, like their LNG needs, like they're getting it from Russia. Their energy prices are skyrocketing. It's like, I'm sure they would love to have the US to be a part of that, but everything now is going to come with strings attached.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be, the US is going to position itself for some type of beneficial trade partnership, less, aid without having something in return. And that's, I'm fine with that. As a trader, I just want to see that things aren't absolutely chaotic and volatile. If they are, I want to make sure that I'm, I'm navigating that well. But as we just, you just got to watch it. It's like, you never know how this is going to be predicted. To your point on fiscal policy that we talked about offline, it's like, look, the Fed is in the background just doing nothing. Like, the Fed's not going to do anything until they cut maybe in June, maybe cut again by the end of the year, by November, December. Or if inflation, this is the thing, Trump can make all these claims right now and say, in 4 days, we've accomplished more than people have done in years, and blah, 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 and blame, blame, blame. Trump is the first one to take all the credit for things are good. And he's also the first to misdirect any blame or any accountability where things are bad. That's the one thing that I don't like about him. It's like, he'll never take responsibility or accountability for things going bad. And so the data is going to be, what is inflation doing in the next 3 to 6 months? If the 10-year yield is higher and inflation is higher and CPI and PCE and all these things are higher, you can say all you want about how we're going to improve and this is going to be so much better. But if it doesn't actually happen, then it's just talk. So that's the only thing I would say. The most responsible thing you could do for Trump as president right now is hold him accountable for all these claims that he's making about how great his presidency is going to be. That's my only concern, is make him do it, make him prove it, make him fix things, because if he doesn't, then it's just all talk.
Just on a side note, Chris, I think that one of the a good exercise to do for every president, whether you like them, dislike them, or whatever, is go to the things that they kind of built their campaign around. Like, Trump is big on the economy, is big on immigration, etc. Write down some metrics and check back in 4 years. I do this, I write myself kind of a letter like, hey, this is what this president claimed. I did it for Biden. I did it for Trump. It's interesting just to see, like you're saying, every politician, every president will window dress their good, and they'll undermine, or they'll kind of downplay their bad. And so I think we leave it, as you were kind of pointing out, like, leave it to the market to decide whether or not these policies and changes are actually good. And, I think there's some hype built in. Stocks are ripping off of stuff. And I think there's some of that, but I also think that there's a very healthy, keep some cash on hand. We always talk about this, Chris, but keeping some cash on hand, I think, is very, very appropriate, because you can see how volatile that is, right? At any point, something drastic can come into play. Something can change the story. And, the trade war, we discussed this recently, the trade war kind of escalations that happened back in 2018 around Christmas time were out of nowhere. Market was down 25%. So you got to be real careful with, Trump. He's a very, whether you like him or dislike him, he goes for the throat on whatever he's doing.
Yeah, pretty abrasive, and that's okay. But again, talk is talk, and let's see if the data actually shows that things are getting better. Because global friction is not good for inflation, and making claims that are never going to materialize is just a bunch of BS. So let's see it. Let's see if 4 years actually, and you can go sentiment too. For him to say like, oh, the sentiment is the highest it's ever been. It's like, right, that's a problem, because contrarian wise, that's never been a good sign. Sure. Over optimism and euphoria has never been a good sign. Most of the time recessions come with euphoric sentiment, and we're in it. So
and again, it makes the Fed's job hard, right? Because there's a lot of unknowns here, there's a lot of uncertainties, and by proxy, the Fed's job being hard makes it hard for traders. But also, Chris, there's some opportunities there, right? Like if there's uncertainty and volatility in the market, there's obviously some opportunities to, again, I think, keep some cash on the sidelines, wait for opportunities that are, in my opinion, more likely to happen. I think we're going to see even if this next 4 years is a great period for the stock market, I think you're very likely to see some large swings in between as people try and sort out, is this stuff actually going to lead to companies performing better? Or is this going to cause inflation? Or are commodities going to rip for the next few years? Or are they going to plummet, right? We don't know exactly. And there's big promises about the oil world, right? That seemed to be a centric piece to what he was saying. Oil's down a little bit here today, but it's up, for the last few months. So we've got to just kind of stay vigilant. And the oil and gas stuff, I think will be a very fascinating thing to watch here is does OPEC cooperate, first of all? Second of all, can the wars be stopped? I don't know. Maybe not. But if they do, it changes the landscape for oil. It's a challenging time to be a trader. I think I remember in 2016 to 2019 or whatever, it was also a very challenging time to be a trader. There's a lot of volatility, a lot of unknown. And, that's where I got introduced to Twitter, pulling up Donald Trump's tweets just to see what was going on.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. I'm glad it's over with. I was looking the whole he's talking, and I'm just looking at trades and trying to find some good stuff. So I'm still working through a scanner that I did this week, and we've got some earnings that are picking up interest as well. Like next week we have Tesla, Meta, and Apple. So you got some pretty big market cap swings next week with earnings. And then after that, you'll have your Amazons. You'll have I think Microsoft is next week as well. So things are a little bit more interesting. I'm looking at my 610 level, my 600 level for the week on the SPY. So whether or not this market can creep up, which by the way, if we hit 610, that's the SPY hitting an all-time high. All-time high sitting right around 609.08. So does it have what it takes to maybe have a directional flow for the rest of today? Maybe we gap up tomorrow and then fade that. This market has given us a lot of crazy gaps. I mean, we have 4 gaps in 9 trading days that the bears have had no interest in showing signs of shorting. So I do wonder, like, maybe the goal is we hit the all-time highs and then there's just gaps galore to fill. And there's what we just talked about, which is a lot of back and forth and a lot of ups and downs. And look, the market, if it stays, Nick, within like a 7 to 10% range, I could see that happening. I mean, we've had nothing but ups and downs for 6 years without really any calm chop. And I could see calm chop being something where it's like, it might be volatile. It might drive, YOLO traders crazy because there's no just blow off directions. But I think a 10-year range or a 10% range would actually be like very tradable. I just want to take advantage of it. So I don't know. We'll see. But
I think it'd be
watch the highs.
really, really appropriate. I mean, given we've had 2 years of upside and a whole lot of, I'm not going to call it like I think the easy answer is to say, I don't know. And neither does the market about some of these policy shifts.
Sure.
As you mentioned, I mean, Trump is a hype guy, he's a business guy. He's going to get people excited about some of the things like less regulation, less taxes for businesses. That gets the market hyped up. But then there's the question of tariffs. And I think maybe just this recent kind of pump here was just day one. There wasn't, blow off tariffs all over the place on China and stuff. I think that's maybe short term what the market is excited for, but those are yet to be seen. Like, we don't know all the answers there. So you've got this kind of drift up market, but again, I think there's nothing wrong with staying kind of on the sidelines too with some cash and spreading out from just being long stocks, because I think that's the very crowded trade right now. And I mean, I have a trade on right now, but it is truly a trade. I don't have a lot of investments right now, so I've got a lot of trades that I'm working with. So we'll see how it goes. But Chris, we've been on air for a long time, so I want to hop off and get some other stuff done today. I'm sure you do as well. So thank you for coming on. Thanks for hosting.
For sure, man.
I'm sure we'll see you back next time.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
See you, everybody. Bye, guys.
Thanks for watching today's A1 Trading Show. We hope you enjoyed, and we're excited for a brand new year of trading with you. If you're new, consider subscribing for daily videos and live streams all year long. Be sure to check out the description below for our latest deals and offers. 2025 is just the beginning of our best year yet. We'll see you tomorrow.